I'm now going to call this meeting to order. We now have a quorum and we have 8 of our 9 members. And first and foremost, just need to begin with roll call.
Commissioner Ali,
Present.
Commissioner Daniel,
Present.
Commissioner Dillard,
Present.
Commissioner Gathua, Commissioner Harris,
I think
Present.
she's muted.
Commissioner Johnson, I see both Commissioner Gathua and Johnson on the screen, so. Commissioner Nobis isn't here. Commissioner Rivera,
Present.
and then Commissioner Traore.
Here.
Sorry, I was on mute. I did say present.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and with that, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 15th? Or does anyone have anything prior to that that they'd like to change or discuss?
I'm gonna put a motion to approve the minutes on April 15th.
I will second.
All right, and then Stephanie, can we please get a roll call?
Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathua,
Yes,
Commissioner Harris,
he's muted.
Yes. I was muted.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Commissioner Johnson,
He's muted.
I just asked him to unmute. Let's.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner Johnson, we're just approving the minutes from the April 15th meeting date. Okay. Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Traore,
Yes.
and I'll go back to Commissioner Johnson.
Mike might be,
You can't hear. We can't hear him. Okay.
okay. Yeah, just check your Bluetooth settings on your mic or just the connection to just make sure.
Commissioner Johnson, can you hear us?
Here, I'm gonna message him real quick.
Yeah, and I'll ITS is here too to assist, so I'll send a note too.
Yeah, he's not muted either, so I don't know if he happens.
We'll just wait until we get that resolved. I just want to make sure he can hear everything going on.
Lily, can you check to see if that's anything on our end or if that's on, it appears that it's probably on Commissioner Johnson's end, but
He exited the meeting and is going to re-enter.
Yeah,
okay.
that was probably my best advice. I'm continuing to see if there is anything that would cause that on our end, but actually, if you could make me a co-host as well, that'll give me a little more permission to do things. All right, thank you.
All right, he's back. All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, he said he can hear us. Yeah, just like right next to where it says mute, there's that little arrow, and then just click that and just check audio settings.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yep.
Yay.
It's just like the commercial from way back.
How about that?
Yeah, I can hear him now.
Perfect. So can I just get your vote for the minutes, please, Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, what was it again?
For the approval of the April 15th meeting minutes?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So next we'll be moving on to agenda item number 3, public comments of items not on the agenda. And just want to remind commissioners that we are not to engage with the public during public comments, and we'll give the members of the public up to 5 minutes to speak. And is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? You can raise your hand now and we'll be sure to call on you. Currently seeing no hands raised. Oh, we have someone else who's joined. So it's public comments of items not on the agenda. If anyone from the public would like to address the commission on anything not on the agenda for tonight, you can just raise your hand and we'll be sure to call on you. All right, not looking like we have anyone for public comment. And from now we'll be moving on to agenda item number 4, introductions. So this is an agenda item. So we kind of did this in the very first meeting where we all just introduced ourselves and say a little bit about yourself, how you ended up in Iowa City, why you joined the commission, and as well what you would like to do while you're on the commission. And you can be as detailed or undetailed as you like, but we would just like to have this on the record for the public as well so they can get to know us a little better. And do we have any volunteers to begin? If not, I'll go first.
You can go first, Mohammed, and then I'll just go after you, and then after that we can just kind of.
Okay. My name is Mohammed Jofolo Traore. Middle name is my grandfather's name. I was born in Brooklyn, New York in July of 1995. My parents are from Mali in West Africa. And my dad came to America when he was about 26 years old. I turned 26 this summer, so kind of odd there. But other than that, yeah, he started out in Brooklyn, New York as well, and started as a taxi driver. And then my mom came over to America about 2 years afterwards, and I was born a little under 2 years after she got here. And we lived in Brooklyn till just before I turned 4. And after that, we moved to Iowa City as gun violence and everything going on in New York were just pretty unsettling for my parents. And they just wanted to make sure I ended up in a safer environment. And we started out in the Finkbein apartments, and then from there went to Hawkeye Drive, and then finally in mid 2002, my dad, after my whole life growing up, worked 2 jobs, and yeah, he finally was able to get home loan to get a home in the South District. Went to Grantwood Elementary, and then from there went to Southeast Junior High and City High. Ran track at the University of Iowa for about 2 years. And then other than that, started out studying chemical engineering, switched over to hydroscience late in my junior year. And now I currently work at Amazon in the logistics division and on the tech side. So for me, the reason I joined the commission is, for one, I was unconfident at first, but I knew that I didn't want to not take the chance and have someone possibly end up on the commission that might not take it as seriously as I do. And it's nothing against anyone, of course, but just never want to have regrets. And also, I just know that from my upbringing and the things I've experienced, it's not as bad as others, but I just want to just really be a representative for youth in the city that have grown up here and let them know that it does get better and they do have an opportunity to move forward and to have a better life. And I just really want to help embody that through my work on the commission. And I just don't want to leave Iowa City worse than I left it. So anything I can do to advance anything for the younger individuals in this city and everyone of all ages as well, I'm more than willing to be a part of that. So my main goals, for one, are just to make sure people in this community feel comfortable talking to each other so that we have fewer of these disagreements over time. And I know it's never going to be perfect, but at the end of the day, as long as people know that you can talk to your neighbors, you should talk to your neighbors. It shouldn't immediately be fear and calling police on them or just refusing to say hi and things like that. Like, we need to be there for each other and take care of each other. So at the end of the day, when it comes to a lot of the youth in the city, they feel like they don't have a structure or backbone and they have no one to turn to. So that's my whole thing on community building, community trust. And from what I know, hurt people hurt people. So if we can just take a little bit of that hurt away from everyone, then we're going to have fewer of these instances of just crime and gun violence. And sooner or later, we're going to get to a place where we don't have shootings or we don't have constant police contact and we don't have all of these issues going on in the city. With that, I yield the floor.
So,
Thank you, Mohammed. My name is Amel Ali. Full name, since Mohammed gave his full name, is Amel Mohammed Ali. I got made fun of that my entire life. My middle name's Mohammed, which is my father's name. So my family actually immigrated to the United States from Sudan in 2000. Both of my parents are political asylums who were incarcerated back in Sudan for protesting against the ex-president in Sudan. So I always joke that this activism is like in me. There's nothing I can do to not say how I feel and fight for justice, because that's just what I've known my entire life. I remember being very young and having my mom get incarcerated for being a part of a women's protest in Sudan. So my family moved here in 2000, and I pretty much lived in Iowa City that entirety of that time. I grew up living at first in the Lakeside area on Astor Avenue. And then my family ended up moving to the South District as well. And I think actually Astor Avenue might be a part of the South District, but a little bit closer to like Sycamore Street and stuff. And my parents still live in that same house. I've known Mohammed since I think I was in kindergarten. I'm pretty sure we were in the same kindergarten class at Roosevelt Elementary. And then we ended up both going to Grantwood. So I just feel really passionate about making Iowa City better than I found it as well. Um, my my job is in nursing, but you know, COVID has kind of changed a lot of how I feel about certain things, and I'm really passionate about making Iowa City an equitable place for everyone. And you know, I think that being one of the things that really pushed me to be in this commission is because I have experiences that for example, I was jumped by 3 Caucasian women and was the only person arrested in that situation. Um, I am a sexual abuse survivor, and the healing that I've done, I just want to be able to pass that on, the things that I've learned through my healing process with everything that I've gone through. And I think that it's really important to have these uncomfortable and tough conversations within a community, and it's about time that we started having these in this community because Iowa City is so diverse. But I think that it's time for us to start having conversations that might make a lot of these you know, people around here uncomfortable, and that's okay. And I guess I just want to end off with saying that, like, in my research and learning about the TRC process, I've learned that it's a really, like, it's not a beautiful, easy, fun process, that it's really difficult. So I want everyone to know that I appreciate all of the commission members, and I'm so excited and so happy that there's other people that care and are willing to do the work with me as well. So yeah, with that, I'm going to yield to the floor, and whoever would like to speak next may go.
I will go. Um, yeah, my name is Eric Harris. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I moved to Iowa when I was 18 years old. So I've lived here for about 20 years. I am also a South District resident. I'm also part of the South District Neighborhood Association, and I'm the vice president of that association. Um, let's see the questions. Okay, so the reason that I'm on the TRC is because I was a person that was incarcerated when I was 17 years old. So I know how it feels, you know, when people have to deal with, you know, injustice and just not having a chance or not being able to do anything. And so I came from that, and I'm a homeowner. I own a home in the South District at this point. You know, I was born in one of the most notorious housing projects in Chicago, and I was involved in a lot of gang activity. So that led to my incarceration. Um, so that's why, you know, what Muhammad talked about, he was like, we need people to talk to the younger people. I'm one of the people that I feel like that I can talk to the younger people because you know, I've been through it. And at one point in my life, I was a 16-year-old youth that was out here just doing anything that I can find to do, you know, so I'm one of those people. So that was one of the reasons why I joined this commission. I also joined it. I feel like I'm from the older generation, so I think that my voice could help out some of the younger people. Um, Also, one of the things that got me into activism is I'm one of the people that was pushing and nudging Kim Reynolds, which is the governor of Iowa, to let people vote. And I was one of those people that I had the editorials and the Des Moines Register and all type of things like that. So that's why I joined the commission, because I've already been doing work like that, and I've been working in the South District, and just, you know, just trying to get equal rights for everybody. Everybody needs to have the same rights. It doesn't matter about color, but you know, and I understand, you know, what some of the younger people go through. So I think I can be a voice to try to help them. And with that, I yield the floor.
My name is Cliff Johnson. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I moved out here to Iowa about 7 years or so ago. I actually just came to Iowa City and I enjoyed it. I really liked Iowa City a lot. I thought it was a beautiful place. I thought it was a nice environment with a lot of diversity. And one of the reasons why I joined the commission is I saw that there was a need for it. I felt like there was, from what I was hearing and reading, that there was a little bit of turmoil, and I felt like that's somewhere where I could step in and hopefully help out and help make things a little bit better. I have leadership qualities and skills due to my years in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marines for about 8 years. On top of that, I live in the South District as well, and I'm a gym owner, a boxing club, uh, where I'm a coach, and in that I deal with all different types of people all the time, and we are a unit and a family and people who work together to try to uh, accomplish whatever goals that we go through, and that means anything from boxing and going through any matches we might have, or just personal issues or anything else along those lines. I'm a strong believer in unity and bringing people together and doing it for the right cause. I'm also a Black man, and I've been through a lot of issues my entire life, uh, multiple issues that I feel like I have a good, unique perspective on how I can kind of help bring things to a better light. I, I would like to make Iowa City the best place possible. I have kids here myself, and I feel like anything that we can do to unite each other together and push forward for the betterment of the city, that's really where my goal is. So as of right now, I'm learning as much as I can about the multiple different areas where we need improvement, and wherever I can be, I will be, and I'm gonna do my best for the city and for everybody. So with that, I yield the floor.
I know somebody wants to go. Come on, don't make me feel like a high school teacher and call on somebody.
I was
So
about to say that.
I'll go. So my name is Daphne Daniel, and I'm an attorney here in Iowa City. I'm originally from Providence, Rhode Island, born and raised New Englander, and I came to Iowa because I was really looking for something different, and boy, I found it. And I came here for law school. So I finished law school and decided to stick around because there's a lot of potential here. And I put my hat in the ring to join the TRC because I would like to help Iowa City reach its potential. I yield my time.
I can go. I'm Chastity Dillard. How did I come to Iowa City? Actually, I am born and raised in Iowa, from Davenport, Iowa. Grew up there. Actually was born at the University of Iowa over here, but I decided to go to the University of Iowa in 2007 and graduated in 2011. Didn't really know what I wanted to do at that time, so I stayed in the area, and I had graduated with a degree in journalism and was really focused on that, but landed at a local nonprofit named the Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County in this area. And for the last 7 years, I've basically dedicated my life to fundraising and to really just working with families and youth in our area, especially the immigrant and refugee populations, low-income neighborhoods throughout Johnson County. It was something that I learned a lot and grew from. I started off doing fundraising, but also working with a youth program called G World, which is a girls program that really just spoke to me because as a young Black girl growing up in Iowa, things are a little bit different. So just being able to mentor young girls while they're also teaching me a lot of things too, and just to help them grow and nurture their dreams and goals is something that's really been important to me. And it's something that really drives me moving forward. And so when I saw an opportunity to join the TRC, I was really struck by the storytelling aspect, because again, with the girls that I've worked with, a lot of them have told me horrifying stories that they've experienced as young girls in this community. So I was just really interested in continuing to give back to the community in that way. So I yield the floor as well.
All right, we have Kevo or Dr. Gathwa. Which one's it gonna be?
It's the battle of the doctors. Who's gonna do it
I
first?
can go. You hear me? Hey guys, I'm Kevo. I use all pronouns. I've lived in Iowa City for 7 years now, and I moved here from Los Angeles. So for anyone who moved here from somewhere else and had that culture shock, I can relate. I identify as queer and agender and a Filipinx American. I was a child of once undocumented immigrants. Before medical school, which is why I moved to Iowa City, I worked in the nonprofit sector, specifically in grassroots advocacy and youth leadership and international human rights. And now I'm a psychiatry resident at the University of Iowa in the Iowa City VA Medical Center. And this year I'll be going on to continue my training in child and adolescent psychiatry fellowship at the U. So I've worked in various settings within my profession, including inpatient psychiatry, the university and the VA outpatient clinics, some community mental health clinics like the Abbey Center, and also the Shelter House Mental Health Outreach Clinic. Through all of my work, I hear stories of trauma a lot, like interpersonal trauma, historical trauma, trauma related to racism. And it was really evident to me in the past year, especially, that there was only so much that I could do to respond to the needs of my minoritized patients through direct clinical work, especially with sort of the compound global stressors of the pandemic and violence against AAPI people and increased visibility of police brutality. I needed to do something more to do my healing work more holistically and comprehensively. So this commission was among one of the many ways that I could try to do that. I do hold a number of leadership positions that involve me in diversity, equity, and inclusion work through my profession, but I wanted to make sure that I was really directly engaged with the community. So my priorities moving forward are really to ensure that we're building a space that we're really including all minoritized voices and to make sure that this is a safe space for them. And I know that I'm not alone in that goal. So I'm really thankful to all of you for saying yes to this work, even with all of the controversy that was surrounding this commission beforehand. These, as we've seen, are really not easy conversations, but I have to earnestly believe that there are ways that we can help bridge we can help be a bridge between the city and the community, which has been really hurt in the past year. So I look forward to seeing how we can do that together with you and with the public. Thanks. Yield my time.
All right, and finally we have Dr. Gathwa. Oh, you're muted.
Please.
Perfect. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, but I seem to have lost myself.
I can hear you now if you was, I just heard you, so.
Yeah, I'm saying my name is Wango Igadua, and I am pretty far from, when I hear people talking, they were talking about moving from another state to Iowa. But for me, I I am from, in 2002, I came to the US from Kenya and to go to graduate school. And I brought my 3 daughters and my 2 sons, and the oldest was 15 years and the youngest was 2. And this was in 2002. And I intended to take 2 years to finish my master's in school counseling. But as you can see, I never left. Iowa liked me and I liked Iowa, so I'm still here. And all my life, as far as I can remember, I've always wanted to make things better in whichever community I'm living in Kenya, and when I also moved to Iowa City. Better for myself, better for my children, and better for those around me. I tend to be biased towards making things better for youth, and that's how I ended up being in Kenya. I was a high school counselor, and I was also heading a school counseling department, so for youth. And then I also favor girls, and that was a decision I made because they are not at par with their male counterparts. So I came to Iowa, I went to UNI and got my master's in school counseling and worked in Cedar Falls School District, and then continued going to school and came to the University of Iowa for my PhD as a counselor educator. And as I was doing this, I was also working, and I'm still involved in the Iowa City School District. I volunteer my time whenever needed. And I continue with my advocacy work and my activism work because it's part of the service that I give to the community. And as I lived in Iowa City and Cedar Falls in Iowa, I was also raising my children. So I had to get involved in making my community better. And I continue to do that. And it's also a piece of my work as faculty, because there's always a service piece to serve both in the university and in the community that I'm working in. I taught history in high school, so I am very aware of colonialism in Africa, which also ended up giving birth to slavery in the US. So I'm very aware of those 2 pieces. And then I go to the US and got to learn more about racism and systemic inequity. And that is also when I discovered that before coming to the US, I was just Wangui, or the mother of my children, or the wife to my husband, a teacher. But I came to the US and discovered that from the outside, I'm called Black. I am Black, I am Kenyan, I am African. So, and this was not easy because with those labels came some systemic injustices. And here, that's the reason I've ended up with TRC. That inequity, and both people that I know and my children, myself, experiencing firsthand these injustices That is why I ended up in TRC to be part of a team and work with others to make our city and our environment better. I will stop there. I have a lot of words and I earn my living as a teacher.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gathua, and thank you everyone for being open and being willing to share more about yourselves.
I just want to add that currently, for the last 2 years, I'm coordinating NISA African Family Services. Our mission is to help survivors and victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and trafficking among African immigrants and refugees. Our office is in the Eastdale Plaza above DOT. And I am also a multilingual advocate because we are a culturally proficient organization, and the state of Iowa allowed us to be instituted because we fill a gap where part of the inequity that the African immigrants in Iowa experience inequity in the area of being served when they are surviving or they are victims of domestic violence. So we serve culturally, we give cultural specific services and linguistic using African languages. And then I also teach for Grand Canyon University. So that piece of serving in the community helps me to serve in the community and help our already marginalized communities. Yeah, I will stop there.
Thank you very much. And thank you also for sharing that information. As everyone's aware, all these meetings are archived as well and posted online. So that's some great information to have on there as well in case anyone's not comfortable with speaking directly in a meeting, that they can go to resources like yours and just find more of the assistance and healing that they need. And if no one has anything else, we'll move on to agenda item number 5. And before we go through the entire thing, I will just read over the actual items in it, and then from there, we'll allow the public to just kind of comment if they'd like on the full agenda item number 5. So we're going to be doing a review or discussion of the resolution for the creation of the TRC and the missions and values. And Part A is just that the fact finding, the TRC shall collect evidence, including firsthand testimony of discrimination and racial injustice in multiple settings, and compile a complete record of racial injustices that will inform and support the fundamental institutional and policy reforms necessary to address systemic racism. B, truth telling. The TRC shall, 1, provide multiple fora and creative opportunities for persons impacted and traumatized by racial injustice to share their stories of racial injustice and experience to be heard by A, fellow communities of color, B, a broad cross-section of the entire Iowa City community, and C, key decision makers in city government, the business community, and the university. 2, explore ways to provide opportunities through art, music, theater, workshops, rallies, and other forms of congregation, multimedia, and listening designed to reveal truths that cannot be fully expressed in traditional fora. 3, create a repository for community stories expressed in multiple media, written, video, audio, art that can be cataloged and used to educate and inform members of the community. C, reconciliation. The TRC shall, 1, provide opportunity for and facilitate direct conversation among and between community members of color, white community members, and representatives of various sectors in which people of color experience discrimination and injustice, police and protests, landlords and tenants, students and teachers, patients and healthcare providers, business owners and staff. 2, create a replicable model that provides a structure for enabling these conversations throughout the city. 3, make available opportunities for a broad cross-section of the community to learn about discrimination and racial injustice in our community. And 4, identify and recommend to the City Council is institutional and policy reforms, new social practices, expectations, protocols, habits, rituals, conversations, and celebrations that will move Iowa City toward a shared experience of race and of indifference, justice and equity, and community and harmony. Mission statement, who are we? Our commission represents a collection of citizen activists from diverse backgrounds calling on the Iowa City community to account for their history of racialized oppression. We are individuals who are committed to structural change, truth-telling, healing, trauma, and repair. We share in common a vision for an equitable and sustainable community free of violence and systemic racism. We believe the time has come to foster change. Our mission, the Iowa City Ad Hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission, is committed to implementing and sustaining grassroots, community-centered truth-telling processes to address past and present instances of both direct and indirect actions of violence, discrimination, and racism in Iowa City. We will collect testimony from a variety of institutions, including but not limited to schools, housing providers, government officials, healthcare, banking institutions, and law enforcement. And with that, is there anyone from the community tonight that would like to address the commission on anything from agenda item number 5 prior to commission discussion? Raise your hand and we will be sure to give you up to 5 minutes to speak your piece. All right, looking like we have no one from the public that would like to address the commission. And with that, it's now the opportunity for the commission members to just discuss the items in agenda number 5 so we can just get a better understanding of how everyone sees the actual mission and the resolution. And that way we can move forward with a better understanding of how everyone would like to work on all of this. Would anyone like to begin? Oh, yep.
I can go first. If you turn on your TV, you watch TV every day, I mean, that probably gives you the reason why we need to focus on the agendas and things we need to do. You know, the police, they've been doing a lot of terrible things lately. So just turn on your TV and you can see it, every day. With that, I yield the floor.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I think the question on here about the values and assumptions is a really important question, especially because this was something we didn't go over initially when it started. And so and anyone can feel free to speak on this after, but I just want to know what people imagine this process looking like, because it's hard to I want to know what our vision looks like of this, because when I think of this process, I think of people coming forward and speaking about this, but there's also a lot of things that I think that we forget about, as far as I don't even know if it would be like legalities or things like that, but and Daphne, I don't want to call you out, but you actually made me realize, what if a child wants to tell their truths? What does that look like? Is it okay for someone who is above 18 or under 18 to, tell their truths? Are we going to have someone, who is going to be their entire job is just typing and what everyone is saying? And, Daphne also had brought up the point to me about, ADA format, so that people who have disabilities are able to access these stories. And so those are things that I didn't think about. And I think that those are really important things to think about when we start having these truth-telling processes, because there will be someone that needs to, take record of all of these experiences. We'll have to, have people that are doing the work of making sure that, the stories are truthful, and where are we going to keep this archive of all of these stories, and who's going to be in charge of that? So I think that was something that before we didn't really talk about, and I would be interested to hear what other people's visions of what this process looks like. I yield to the
So I'd like to chime in on that. When I initially saw the A, B, and C, what I envisioned was a multifaceted approach where you are doing some in-person live sessions of people telling their stories, but also maybe we do a giant video project with some local people of color that have that as their background to do some storytelling in different visually appealing ways that would really get people's attention. Because like I said when I was introducing myself, I really think it's important that we give people the opportunity to tell their truths in any way, whether it's anonymous, or in person, just because I think there's a lot of stories in this community alone that are just swept under the rug, as we all know, or people just don't think anyone else is experiencing it, like things. So I'm just thinking we can do social media, we can do live events, even it says, or if someone wants to do something super abstract and like some dance event or slam poetry, that's what I was expecting or hoping to do, like more of those creative ways of showcasing how we want to be heard in this community. And I yield the floor.
Mhm. And I would say I would go and just add to it a little bit. I'm a father of 3 little girls, and so I would like to see stuff like that. I don't like to be on guard every day because I don't want to have to worry about somebody doing something to my daughters, because it's just so. I think they need stuff to do, like Chastity said. I agree with what she said a lot.
I do have a quick question. Obviously, we're focused on the bad areas, but I'm hoping we can find an area to tell some of the good stories as well as we're going through this.
Oh yes, got a lot of those.
Yeah, I'd like to add that I have, so I currently do have this saved in an email file, and was hoping that by the end of this week to just share all of that with the commission members, get all of that typed into some notes of some people that have contacted us about wanting to help out in terms of policies, or just um, actually setting up transformative justice sessions or just listening sessions. And then also we do have an individual that works for, I believe, the Englert Theater. So very, very good with media and recordings, and asked him if he'd be interested in recording some of those sessions for us in those videos. And he said he'd love to do it. And um, currently it sounds like um, right now, of course, the rest of you would have to agree to this as well, but kind of like a video series of just some positive experiences people have had in the community. And if you guys would like to participate as well, could do that. And then as well, just feature some of the stories that, you know, have to also clear that with the individuals, but some of the more negative stories as well, and highlight those. And I do know that we have City Channel 4 and other local stations, and if they'd be willing to play those during commercial breaks or feature that at any time, then we would have the ability to use part of the budget to get that going. Or if it's City Channel 4, I'm sure the city may just be okay with doing that. But again, this is something that everyone would have to agree to. So I'm just putting that out there now, so we can all just think about that. And for me, that fact finding section, um, I think it's not only going to be an aspect of people being willing to come forward and tell their truths, but also taking some of the instances we've heard in just the last few years. I mean, we have many records of news stories, so we can contact those individuals if they want to come forward. There's court records for a lot of these things. And in addition, there was this social media account I noticed over the summer called Black at ICCSD, and I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but there's some crazy stories on there of just specific teachers just treating kids in terrible ways or not listening to what they were saying about how they were getting bullied. And from there, there was some action that was taken, but it was just disheartening to see that that's what it finally took for some of these instances to be dealt with. It's like, in just anything we can do to bring about the past things that have also been done, like open records requests if needed. I mean, I don't know if we'll need to do that, but I do know there's an individual in the city that has looked into the history of redlining in Iowa City and has done some data research and maps. Haven't gotten the chance to reach out to him yet, but if anyone's interested in doing that, that's something else we can do. And when it comes to the whole reconciliation aspect, we're going to need more white people to join the conversation because they need to hear these things. They need to hear from the people that experience these things because it can't just be, oh, you got to watch this on TV or, oh, we hope you listen to this. Like, no, we need to make sure they're actually prioritizing listening to these stories and to everything that's going on, because it doesn't matter if we put forth the policy if they've never even heard the trauma that's behind it. I don't want to hear any excuses of, oh, that can't be true, this or that, when I don't want people to be gaslit on what they've gone through here. Because I've experienced racism on multiple occasions in just the last few years. And it's disheartening when you're in your own city and you have people calling you the N-word. And but over time, it's just come to be expected here and there. And that's a sad thing to have to say. But yeah, this stuff does exist, and we need to make sure that other individuals do get the chance to really hear that pain and hopefully find a way to empathize with it. With that, I yield the floor.
I am going to be very vocal about this. I don't care if a white person is in this meeting listening to this or not. But that's not like really, I just think that I want to figure out then if that's the goal, then how do we get there, you know? Like Chastity was saying, social media and things like that. So I think the idea is finding people. I think it says actually in the before it, I think it said like the stakeholders, the people we want to involve in these conversations, who who does that look like? If it's, you know, not just a white or a black or a this, you know, like who are these people that we want to get involved? You know, like I think that it's a very important to um involve, like, for example, the South District. I think over half of this commission lives in the South District or has grown up there. So I think I would much rather have, you know, speak to people that have grown up and lived in the South District and hear their stories, and work with those stories and kind of uh, like put more emphasis on those kind of stories and the people that have grown up here like that, and um, figure out who the stakeholders are that would need to see this information, that would be the best at like spreading it out or putting it about, because I don't think getting people at these meetings is going to be the way to find the answer. I think it's going to be the work that we do. And I know, Chastity, you probably have a lot more experience like in the social media realm and stuff like that, but I think people are on their computer a lot, and like, you know, you may have, Mohammed, you've made that point before, like sometimes people won't scroll past like a certain amount of thing. They just, it, people don't want to spend that much time reading a lot of things. So I think those are important things to take into account when we're talking about these, but I really want to focus on uplifting the voices of the marginalized and working with grassroots communities and projects that work to uplift marginalized folks. And yeah, that's kind of my little bit on that.
With arts, entertainment, and media, I would like to definitely join in on that as much as I can. I've gone to art school before. I didn't bring that up, but I've been in art school, and I feel like entertainment, not necessarily entertainment, but speaking to people through different different medias is definitely what we should go about, because for one, we got short attention spans and we got people who don't care. They do whatever they want all over. And I feel like to grab their attention in a way that uh, is easy accessible, and at the same time entertainment. I feel like that's the right route to go. And however, I've been listening right now, and I'm trying to learn as much as what resources we have and everything like that. And I'm willing to roll with that. I'll definitely work with that. I heard was it a theater company or something along those lines of actors that anybody might know or anything like that. I'm not that familiar with it myself, but definitely.
Yeah, I can go with that. What Emil was talking about, I know those people really well. They live in the South District, so I know those people, and that's a good idea. So
yeah, I would love to touch base with them.
yeah, I know those people really well. So
all right, well, I have some ideas. As of right now, like I said, I'm absorbing, and I just want to make sure it's approached the right way, and the most effective way is what I mean by the right way. So yeah,
I like that. I know that's an idea. Maybe we can put that on the agenda, because I could take a walk down my street in 5 minutes. I can be at those people's house. I know the people that do the theater thing. So
that would be great. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
It's amazing. And I think that, I mean, this is something, of course, that everyone would have to agree with as well. But if you guys know of the Dream City or the Kingdom Center, uh, Pastor Frederick Newell there, got the chance to speak with him last week. And after seeing that auditorium in there, it kind of crossed my mind. What if instead of, when we got to the point where we got the okay to actually have in-person meetings, instead of doing it at the city office, why don't we just do it in the South District at the Kingdom Center?
well, that's a good idea, Muhammad, because I see Frederick every day, because they come and they've been, because kids haven't been going to school, they come drop off lunches and dinners every day
Yeah,
they don't ask for anything for it. They even brought ribs over here the other day. They just bring, so we need to get some stuff figured out, because those guys are doing a great job.
yeah, 100% agree. He's telling me he's basically been feeding close to 50 kids a day, the entire pandemic, and how he just funds so much of this himself. And just kind of disheartening just to hear the disparities of donations and everything, because apparently we're told that all this stuff's being done for the youth, but then you see so many minority youth that are still not getting the attention that they need. And he's got that Fathers Network podcast and everything, and I just want to make sure that when it comes to it, as Mel said, focused on the more marginalized communities, and make it so that if people want to come to these meetings, they have to come to the South District, and they have to actually interact with Black and brown people.
Yeah, that's a good point, because right now we have a problem over here in the South District where it's a lot of kids that shooting BB guns and throwing rocks at buses. And the police, the only thing that they said was they're going to have a more bigger presence. So pretty soon it's going to be a bad interaction with police and children, because I don't know who kids they are, but they're shooting BB guns around here. I had to chase one of them out my yard just a couple days ago. I'm shooting BB guns and throwing rocks and whatever else they're doing. So that's something we need to talk about. So
I just want to caution our entire focus on the South District, because we are supposed to be focused on the whole community, and there are a lot of other pockets.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta give kids more to do. We gotta give kids more positive role models and examples, and events. If we get events that we could get them involved in and get them doing something, it'll hopefully, with the right people involved, kind of keep them from getting into trouble. That's the one thing that I feel like idle hands is the devil's playground. If we just we don't have anything else going on around here. I'm, like I said, I'm from Philadelphia. There's a lot more going on all the time. It's a bigger city and everything, but I don't see a reason why we can't do that out here. And it's multiple. I'm a coach, so like I said, when it comes down to working out and going on runs, positive things. If you're busy, if you're doing something, and there's no time to get involved with anything else crazy. So yeah, let's. I whatever way we can, and setting up some events, I would like to do it. Like even if it's just small sporting events or anything like that along those lines, just for fun, to try to get the kids out there and help them out. That I'm all about that. So.
And then I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna respond to what Chassie said. The South District has the most people of color in the whole city. I would say. So that's why I'm not trying to focus on that or focus on the South District, but we have a large African community, we have a large African American community, and we have a Latino community over here. And it's really not anything else over here. So
Don't get me wrong, I fully understand that area. I work in that area as well. I'm just thinking about the Pheasant Ridge area, our mobile home parks. I live in Coralville. We have a segregated area in North Liberty. I know we're focused on Iowa City, but I was also told that we could focus on all of the areas of the corridor. So
got you. I got you. Definitely.
And I think it's important to remember there are plenty of students of color in Iowa City who are just disconnected with the greater community, like of Black people. Like when I was in law school, the Black people I saw were the people I went to class with because I lived in a place that just were mostly students and there just weren't many Black students. So I think it is important to kind of spread out where we are reaching out to people, because we're not just trying to get the stories of one segment of Iowa City's population of color. We really want to get as many as we can. And that's a good segue to something that I'm really focused on is when we're collecting this evidence, whether it's in writing, whether it's art, whether it's music or some other audiovisual medium, we need to consider who's going to own this work, how are we going to store it, how are we going to maintain the privacy of the people who submit this information, and kind of, I think that's probably the first place to start. So we don't have a situation where we talk to someone and then they don't want that information shared, especially if that's kind of what we need to use this information. So they may be okay with us using it to write the report, but they're not okay with us putting it on Channel 4. So I think these are all great ideas, but I do think before we move forward with planning this, we have to figure out these preliminary issues.
So I'm gonna have to come back and say something. During the terrible pandemic that we had, in the last year or so, most of the shootings happened in the South District. And the people that live in the South District, I'm not trying to put the focus on that, but there was multiple shootings in the South District, and I just think that we need help over here. And that's what I want to say about it. And, that's why I believe that, because like it was a pandemic and you wasn't even supposed to go, you wasn't even supposed to be going outside. And it was just like shooting after shooting after shooting. And it's nothing for these kids to do. So with that, I yield.
And oh, go ahead, Daphne. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I understand why. I understand the reasoning behind focusing on the South District. I just want to make sure that we still keep in the back of our minds that there are other people. There are just other Black people in Iowa City, in North Liberty, in Coralville, who are probably more unseen. Like I had no idea there was a segregated pocket of North Liberty. And when we go even further out, we're talking about Black people who are in very rural areas and maybe facing more hostility than we can say here in Iowa City. I do think as far as keeping kids busy or doing something for the kids, essay contests, dance contests, we can make this enriching and empowering to the children, as well as getting the information that we need. so I definitely understand, and I wasn't trying to call anyone out for focusing on the South District.
I was thinking a show. If like I said, I've been absorbing and try to listen in on things, but I was thinking a show, because with the show you can go to different locations, you can give different stories. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what's that show on Comedy Central, Drunken History. Have you guys ever heard of that
Yeah,
before?
drunk history.
Well, with Drunk History, the way, if we have people who want to give their stories, but they might feel afraid to, you can also have actors. That's what I was thinking about, the actors. You can have actors act out stories and act out the situations and scenarios, but at the same time, if someone doesn't want to be seen, you can just have them have a narrator taking their story, making sure that you let their story get out there, but at the same time, uh, taking them a little bit off from it, to just give a comfortability level. Like I said, I got quite a few different ideas that I was coming up with to try to get people's voices out there. Plus, if people would like to vlog and be interviewed and give their specific story, because we're in different locations all over and throughout the city, go to them and show their area, who they are and what they're dealing with and why they're dealing with it, and how can we awareness is the thing. The more people can see and understand, they can empathize a little bit more. People who might not normally care, if you put them in a situation like Twilight Zone, where you reverse situations and show what it's like and how it feels, you can find a way of empathizing a little bit more. So, like I said, I would definitely. I thought about we had what PATV, was that the public access that we had going on here for a little while? Are you guys familiar?
Mhm.
Uh,
Then the City Channel 4 is the main
that's
one.
that's what PATV is now.
Yeah.
Okay, well there you go. That's literally what I'm talking about. I remember when it was over by the fire station over there, and I know they changed over and moved, but I haven't seen a new location or anything. But that's literally where I'm going with things. That's what I'm talking about. So, but with that I yield.
So I think all of these ideas are great, but I don't want to. I think Daphne's point is really important, and I I'm hoping that Steph, you might be able to answer these kinds of questions. But like that, if we take video of people and we don't do the right paperwork to it, and like it doesn't matter what work we do if we don't know who owns it, how are we going, if we don't store it safely, if we actually, I think that that's a good point to figure out those things. And I don't know if the city has done that before in the past, with other things, or if there's contracts that exist already. But and like I said, Steph, maybe you'd be able to answer that question, or figure out an answer to that question at some point. But is there something that we would need to write up or do, or work on in order to get testimonies from people, or like a permission to use their, name or whatever, something like that?
Well, the thing that I'll remind each of you of when you're talking about this is that you're a public board.
Yeah.
So if you're contacting that person, whether it's by email, text, that's going to be a public record, and you're not going to shield that information. If you're taking notes at a meeting or a subcommittee meeting about a situation or testimony that somebody is giving you, that's all still going to be considered a public record.
Okay.
So I mean, there's really no way around that aspect. So let's say you use actors to tell somebody's story. If somebody requests emails, they may be able to determine who that particular person is, even if you use an actor to tell their story. So I think that's just something to be very mindful of in this process, because you are a public board.
Is
Yeah,
there something that we could write up, or like I don't know, like before, when these testimonies happen, you know, like if you're signing up to speak, you have to, you know, fill out this paper knowing that this is part of your participating in public, you know, something that is going to be part of public record. If you don't feel comfortable having your name, whatever, all of that, then you may choose to not tell your story. Is that kind
I
of like,
think that's correct, to give a person notice
okay,
that
cool.
you can't guarantee any sort of confidentiality in terms of them coming forward. I also think that let's see, there's a section in the resolution that talks about number 12 specifically, that talks about the TRC shall consider the possibility of adverse actions against those who participate in its work. The TRC shall carefully consider mechanisms to protect participants and shall work to support those who allege harm to their participation in the TRC process. So that's actually in the resolution 2228 that discusses that. And so I think part of that conversation is, what resources could you provide to somebody should they come to you and say that they feel like they've been retaliated against because they participated in this process. What I can say is local law and state law does protect somebody from coming forward to talk about discrimination, and then they, you know, face some type of adverse action due to that. But so just kind of thinking moving forward about ways you can communicate the various options a person may have if they feel they're retaliated against from speaking out against discrimination, whether it's against them or something they witnessed or something that they were actually a participant in.
Steph, is there a precedent or a tool that's ever been used, like on a city website, that's like an anonymous submission box? That can be one forum that we collect testimony.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So a person, if and I'm not equating this situation to the example I'm going to give, but if somebody is having a nuisance problem, maybe in a neighborhood, you're correct, they can submit a ticket to the city, and it is then forwarded to the proper department to address. The person has the option of not providing a name to when they're reporting that. So I think that may be an option, a viable option that you may consider, so that you don't have that that person's name and they're just submitting something to you.
I'm really excited about all of the sort of creative ideas that have come forward. I'm really taking to heart Commissioner Daniel's sort of suggestions, making sure that we are being really proactive about thinking about sort of the logistics of all of this. And I wonder if that's, you know, something that we'll continue to build even when we select a facilitator to help us along with this work as well. I do want to make sure that we're brainstorming ideas about how we sort of carry out parts B and C of our mission, the truth telling and the reconciliation part. But I want to make sure that many of the ideas of how we propose solutions are coming from the community members who are being harmed and traumatized, right? So in my work, and there's multiple ways of doing healing work, but in the work of Western medicine, you know, we have to do two things. We have to ask, what are you going through? What are you experiencing? And then we have to ask, how can we help, right? And so if we're not asking the people who are giving us testimony how we can help them, and if we as a commission aren't responding to those suggestions, like if we're deciding now how we're going to sort of carry out parts B and C and not leaving space for us to be malleable and adaptive, then I really think that we're doing the community a disservice. And so, you know, I think that there are multiple ways that we could collect testimony. I just suggested one. I think that these commission meetings are another place where, you know, during public comment, that can be a place where people can come forward with different testimonies. I really love the idea that our chair suggested in terms of going into the community and meeting people where they're at, right? We have so many amazing organizations who are already bringing these people together, right? We have the South District Neighborhood Association. We have, you know, Black Voices Project, IFR, we have UAY, we have so many great groups who are already listening to the needs of the people. And with their permission, if we can enter into their spaces and listen there, then I think that's going to be really important and powerful. And going back to sort of one of the initial questions that Vice Chair Ali mentioned at the very beginning, what about the children, like what about the youth? I think that it's a great, and I think I've heard a lot of sort of encouraging responses that we really do care about the youth. I heard a really amazing quote the other day that children are the truth tellers of trauma in their community, right? When populations are traumatized, no one is hurt more than the young people, whether that's below 18 or over 18. And so in addition to listening to them and gathering their testimony, we also have to be really listening to whatever emotions they bring forward, whether that's grief, whether that's rage. And we also have to be really paying attention to the solutions that they're proposing as well. So those are my like 11 cents, but I really just am excited about all of the ideas that are being tossed around.
Yay.
I would jump in real quick. I like an idea that I heard. It was from Cliff. You know, we need to engage the youth with arts, things like that. You know, I even thought about building a studio, you know, in my house just to get the kids to go express what they feel. You know, they can say what they feel. You know, I agree with Cliff about engaging, because if you engage the youth, then you can get the youth to talk to you. You know, if you don't engage them, you don't do anything that, you know, you're not going to just be able to walk up to them and say, hey, what's going on with you? They're not going to tell you. But if you create things like arts and contests and dance offs and things like Cliff brought up, and this is the first time meeting Cliff, and I agree totally what he's saying. So you have to engage him with something. You have to give him something to do. You can't just say, hey, let's talk about, you know, this harmful thing that happened to you. You have to make them feel comfortable. You can't, you know, it's not going to work like that. You have to make them have something to do. And with that, I yield.
I have a quick question, Steph. Is getting testimony from youth, I know that this is like a public, like you said, is there anything with that? Do parents have to be with them? I don't want to just be like, you know, hanging out with kids and their parents, you know, don't know that they're coming to this thing at Dream, you know. Are there rules for that?
You know, I would probably defer that to the city attorney who can provide a response to the full commission on
Okay.
that. The one thing that I did want to mention in terms of this resolution is that it also discusses the budget, which, you know, I'm not suggesting you go in tonight, but what I am saying is that while you're looking at this resolution, it provides for funding for what you need to get your work done. Okay. And so some of that would be money for research, you know, money for engagement, money for a facilitator, whether that's interim or just to get started. There's also, it's possible that you're outsourced. Sorry, hold on real quick. Okay, there's also, if for your final report, when you submit that to council, it's possible you'll outsource that to somebody else to compile. There's also, you could request money for the collection of evidence. And some of the recommendations that you make to council may have a funding request attached to that. So I only suggest that in some of the conversations that you're having this evening, it's possible that these conversations could be further guided by consulting or getting a facilitator that is specific to what you're actually trying to move forward on. And that I don't think that necessarily has to be the same facilitator that you hire to do your overall facilitation. And so just be mindful of that when you're having these conversations, that is something that I believe the resolution would allow you to ask council for funding for. to kind of further your work, which is one of the specific items in the resolution.
Does anyone, so one thing that I appreciated Stephanie bringing up was, we're going to need to talk about what kind of resources and like services and things like that. And, when she was talking about resources we could provide to someone, I think, who feels that they're retaliated against or things like that, are there other things that we have connections with? Like, I know, like, social workers that we can help people get connected with, other entities that we could work with to help people get connected with as well. And are there like specific things that come to mind when you hear, what are the services that you need to be able to fulfill this mission? For example, the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm going to need someone to who knows a good chunk about like the history of the discrimination in Iowa City, just because I couldn't tell you where the first place to look for that is. And so that's like something that I've thought of. But is there anything that anyone else has that wants to throw out there of things that they might think like services that we would need to have or have the city provide or things like that?
I mean, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking, and I'm piggybacking on Kevo when you're talking, and also what Stephanie said. As we, even ourselves, as we are talking, when we talk racism, discrimination, inequity, and even the composition of our commission right now, we've gone through those experiences. We've had those experiences. So trauma is part of this work, and for the period that we are working there, even for ourselves. And as we listen to people, their painful experiences and stories and things that they are agreeing to come and talk. And as a counselor and somebody who trains counselors and a researcher, when you're doing things, and you're getting something from somebody, I was glad to hear Stephanie saying that there's something laid down if there are any adverse, if there's anything adverse comes to the participants of what we are doing. Now, the point I'm pushing that further is we always have an ethical duty if of what come to actually be aware that that is happening, and also what we do. So Amal, that's kind of answering one of your questions, the resources that we have. What do we have to make sure that we are dealing with any, for example, if we are bringing up, we are re-traumatizing the person and they're going to need counseling or therapy services because of that, because we did that. That's something I would not be able to leave behind as we do that, as we continue doing our work. The other thing, as far as resources that we have, maybe there's a whole lot of information for those who are of us who are playing catch up. I've not been able to go through all the audios of what happened and all the materials that I have. I'm wondering whether in there might be something talking about other areas that have done the work that that's before us that we could learn about. And also, this is another area, if there is, or if there isn't, but we have to learn about it, the resources. That's another area that resources would have to be used for us to find that out.
Sounds like to me a little bit of post-traumatic stress, right? So do we have any committees post that deal with specifically post-traumatic stress, like with the VA or anything along those lines that we could incorporate?
I oh, I do want to mention that while we may trigger PTSD in people, their chance to tell their truth, to tell their story, can be somewhat therapeutic. From a lot of the stuff that I've read about TRCs across the world, uh, the probably the most lasting effect was given the people who have these experiences, giving them some type of validation. Like, this happened to me, it is on the record. I got to share my story, and someone actually cared to listen to what happened to me. So I don't necessarily think we need to focus on, are we going to get counseling for the people who come forward? Because in a sort of way, this is hopefully going to be healing for them. And we're not going to pressure anyone. I hope we're not going to pressure anyone who doesn't want to share their story, who doesn't feel like they need to share their story. And I think that's sometimes where you end up re-traumatizing people. And I'm not an expert in this, just in my line of work, when you have to get the information out of someone and they're not quite ready. But when they're ready, they'll tell you, this is wonderful. I'm glad someone actually listened to me. I yield my time.
This is Commissioner Rivera. I second what you said, Daphne. I mean, yes, all of this will be voluntary, right? But that in and of itself, needs to be supported by other sort of evidence-based practice. The work that we're going to be doing as a commission is going to be very different than academic research, but there are plenty of people in the College of Public Health at the University of Iowa who do community-based participatory research, who are well-versed and could probably come to this commission and educate us in sort of the ethics of gathering testimony and stories. The research that I've read does support the therapeutic efficacy of allowing someone to tell their trauma story. But where that breaks down is when we say we're going to collect your story and we're going to sort of fly out and abandon you and leave you with that story without offering ways to help, right? So, I mean, it needs to be the ethic and the tone of this commission that we are gathering this so that we can try to figure out the best way to stand with them, not only in the short term, but in the long term. So I think that if we're looking to spend money on people to educate us, we can bring in these experts that we already have in this community, like the folks in the College of Public Health. And should we collect testimony and it becomes apparent that someone's in acute psychiatric distress or what have you, then we can also figure out best ways to support them at those junctures as well.
Yeah, I guess what I can say is, yeah, I don't feel like we will be, necessarily interrogating anyone or once again forcing them to come forward. And if it makes a difference and we don't really have people volunteering at the beginning, if anyone on the commission would like to participate and tell their truths, we could start with that. And I'd be more than willing to do that myself if needed. I've spent a lot of time over the last 2-3 years really going through cognitive behavioral therapy and just kind of unlocking some of the memories from when I was really young that kind of lost. And if it helps other people, I'd be more than willing to come forward with that information and share that and be publicly vulnerable about all of those things. And if any of you would like to do the same, that's okay. But if not, that's fine too. But personally, I do think that we can get enough people to come forward. And once again, as you guys have said, slowly and surely, once you get one person, you can get another one. And then from there, you can maybe get 2, from there, maybe get 3, from there, maybe get 4. Because if you guys have noticed over the last 5-6 years, we have had movements like that. I mean, in particular, the Me Too movement started with just a few people speaking out. And then from there, as we've seen over the last few years, we've had more and more and more and more people become comfortable with that. And when it comes to the reconciliation piece and making sure we do support people, we can put line items in the budget to, help get legal assistance for the most vulnerable individuals if needed. We also do have Johnson County prosecutor tied to the city government, and that could be a situation where we could speak with Johnson County prosecutor in town and ask them about exactly what we could do in terms of making it publicly known that if retaliation were to occur, some steps could be taken by the legal system, or also just on the end of when we finally do give our policy recommendations to the city, I feel like major policy recommendations would be things that the majority of the community has agreed need to be done to address these systemic issues and make sure they don't occur going forward. So we can just continue to ask the individuals that give their stories, what exactly do you want to be done? And continue working with them and try to flesh those ideas out. And the more ideas we hear that really gel together can really help inform that policy point. And just want to make sure I give the rest of you time to continue speaking. I yield the floor.
Um, so I want to kind of talk about some more like where people might think we might have challenges uh, in especially within this process. But one of the biggest challenges like I immediately think of is when we have group gatherings, we have to, or these gatherings happen, we have to make sure that COVID protocol or, all of that. But are there any other challenges that people can see or that people could think of that we might come across when we are in this process or trying to, reach out to people to be a part of this process?
I'm worried.
Transportation for one. And we do have the city bus system, so that's another thing we could leverage and use to help people get to and from events.
Two thoughts. I think that we should do our best to make sure that any events that we hold are accessible to anyone with disabilities, whether visible or invisible. So if we can have translation services where we think that they're most effective or most needed, including the people who are non-English speakers or the people who utilize ASL. And then I also think that if we're having large events, we should make sure that we're trying to provide options for childcare so that we really can have everyone come. And then my only other concern is time. We were officially appointed until the end of 2 Junes from now, and that's just something that I think that we should consider at some point in terms of requesting for more time from the city council.
Are rec centers available? Are we able to use the rec centers?
I think so.
Yeah, you could request to use a city facility, so that's not a problem. It would just be a matter of making sure there wasn't anything else scheduled.
Yeah, it looks like that would cover everything really. It's handicap accessible. It's easy. There's multiple locations that are throughout the city in multiple different areas. I think that would be the easiest solution to use the rec centers. And I mean, they even have facilities that you could have childcare in certain parts. I mean, I think the rec centers are the way to go. They're already, supposed to be for the public.
The part that I find challenging is with attendance is having people get attracted to what we are doing. and making sure that they show up so that we can do what we are intending to do. And especially those whom we really need to show up. That I find that a challenge, having been working in the community and not. And I was speaking publicly about it even when the listening posts were, the council was doing the listening posts, and I remember telling the council, you have a responsibility to make sure that the people who need to be here and it's not a good reason to give and say that, well, we couldn't reach them. We couldn't, yeah. So now this is now me being in that position and bringing, figuring out how do we bring the people to the room.
I have a suggestion. Mobile billboards. I feel like driving through, if you have a mobile billboard that you can pull through people's neighborhoods, drive around the city, make sure you have everything, all the information you need written out, clear as day. People have cell phones, they could take a quick picture of it and then they got their own access to it at any point in time. A mobile billboard is one way to go about it that you it if we had the right vehicle and just have somebody just drive around with that, I feel like that could go a long way. Just a suggestion. One. I that's one, but social media, a YouTube page, a Facebook account, these things where you can get access to everybody else that's in the vicinity. I think that's another route to go to.
Steph, I think it was you who had said this maybe one of the times when we were chatting, but you said that, and I don't want Kevo to think that we forgot about their question regarding an extension from council. I personally don't think that we're going to have any issues asking for an extension. And I definitely agree that we do need one, because I think that we're kind of like, this is pretty much like starting over for, for us. So I think that is a conversation that we should definitely have at some point, but I think council will be giving us a lot of grace as it pertains to that specifically. So, and then there was something else I wanted to say that I forgot what I was going to say.
I wanted to chime in on Commissioner Ali's initial question about hardships, and I am very curious about our sustainability, making a sustainability plan, just really, especially since we are right now only scheduled for the year, and hopefully the city will extend that. But this is not something that's going to be solved in a year, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. So I think one hardship for that would be us trying to do too much in the first year on a deadline. Another is just really, if we're trying to recreate the wheel and not build upon existing connections in the community, I think that's going to really be detrimental to us. We should definitely reach out to organizations that already have those connections, already know the people. And then I know that we want people, well, I know it's been suggested on both sides, but I think the best way, in my experience, working with communities and doing events, is to go to the people. If you can go to the community, sit down and, like we've been talking about, instead of trying to get people to you, because then they already have those networks of supports to maybe even facilitate their own childcare. They already have people together. I know we have COVID to worry about right now, but even if it's as small as someone sitting in their own living room or in a park or all throughout the community, I think that is the route I would take if we really want to make the most impact.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I definitely agree. I mean, that was one of the things that I thought about first. Like, I know my mom has worked for the neighborhood centers for 20 years, so I'm always like, we should utilize, there's a Broadway location and a Pheasant Ridge location. Those are two areas where there is an extremely high population of marginalized individuals. So those are two areas that we should hone in on. And there's outside areas in both of those areas where we could continue to have these conversations. And I also want when we're having these conversations in these communities, I want to kind of like what Chastity was saying, was like work with other places, like we could have another entity come and maybe they'll supply like food for people, or like table to table to bring something, or things like that. So I definitely agree. And then I just wanted to, this has been like something that has been brought up a lot, Chastity, or sorry, not Chastity, Steph, we've talked about having social media before, and I can't remember what Bruce had said during our joint meeting, but is there anything that are there stipulations to that? Can we have our own Facebook page? So yeah, you're muted, Mohammed, but yeah.
I would have to check
There's
with
specific requirements.
communications, because there's a process in an application that has to be filled out for that.
Okay.
So that's a process that you would have to go through to request.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd read into that, some of the ordinances and things around that, and what you have to do is make sure there's applications for who is going to be accessing the account, so there's a record of that. And also just because you need to know who is the one responding in those situations in case there's ever a public records request or there's anything that goes wrong. But also need to make sure that none of the posts are ever deleted, because it has to be archived, because it'd be public record as well. So I have to ensure that whoever is running the accounts, whether it's one person, two person, or two people or three people, that they are very wary of everything that they type, and that if necessary, could have just a few people on the commission that it can be run by before any of those posts are sent out or any messages are replied to. But yeah, it's a logistical thing as well. But yeah, there definitely is a way to do it.
And I'll follow up with Commissioner Traore and Commissioner Ali after I talk to communications, because that's who it goes through in terms of the application process.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to mention that we should consider bringing on employees or interns, just people whose sole job may be collecting these stories or the evidence, because I mean, we only have so much time, and not only that, but vicarious trauma is a very real concern for me. If the same commissioners are listening to these stories over and over again, I think all of us have experienced some of the things that we're going to be hearing, and we could be dealing with our own trauma again and again. So I think that's something that could be further discussed at another meeting, at a later meeting. But you mentioned the budget, and that was something I thought about, maybe bringing in one or two people. Additionally, we're going to have the expense of storing the evidence that we have, whether it's physical evidence, audio, electronic, all of that stuff. So that was just my contribution to the budget talk. I yield my time.
Yeah, so I've looked into that aspect as well, and what we would just need is a database as well, and we can either hire on someone that's in computer science or someone already with the city staff, or I could set it up pretty easily as well. It's just more of the security on it, so can either store it on the city servers or get a third party and pay them for just the storage space, and we would just have to apply regardless of who it is with, to just ensure that the people that are accessing the database, that is known by the city as well. So there's accountability for whoever has it, and that nothing in there is ever deleted. And just wanted to say as well, if we can just limit this piece of the agenda to just another 5 to 10 minutes of discussion. Just want to make sure we are respectful of everyone's time and get through the rest of it. but also it just sounds like we're not ready to make a concrete decision on the entire process. So I want to just make sure we all take some time to, after this meeting, to truly think about it, have discussions either with each other or with other people in the community as needed, and take in that information as well. But also want to make sure that Secaucus and Commissioner Nova Secaucus is available to be in a meeting, to be in a part of this discussion as well. And with that, I yield the floor.
And then Steph, I was just gonna ask, just to make sure this is, if we are considering bringing on employees or interns, is the process of is there an application process that we have to go through the city? Is there already something that the city has for when a commission chooses to hire someone?
You know, I would have to follow up with the city manager and city attorney, but what I will say is it would be highly unusual for a city board or commission to have an intern or paid staff in terms of an employee reporting to them. If there are concerns about the amount of work that needs to be done, I would imagine that they would probably suggest that if there was a need for more staff to handle the work of the TRC, then that they would probably be hired to work in the Office of Equity and Human Rights and be supervised by city staff. Again, I have a list of things I will follow up on, but I'm pretty confident that that person would need to report to a city staff member and not to a board or commission. So,
Okay, thank you for letting us know.
yeah.
Go ahead, Daphne.
So Stephanie, thank you. So Stephanie, does that include AmeriCorps?
Let me put it like this: the AmeriCorps that the city currently has, whether they're doing work for a particular board or commission, which they probably are and do, they're connected to a city department or division.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if
Yeah,
the
like
city has
Parks.
AmeriCorps.
Yeah, they do, like Parks and Rec, Climate Action, but they're connected to those departments or those divisions. They're doing work of a board or commission, but they're not necessarily reporting to a board or commission.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have anything else that they want to talk about with number 5? I also think that we have another agenda item to talk about subcommittees, but I also was gonna mention that we could have a more in-depth conversation about this during our smaller subcommittee meetings. So if
I did have one thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry to interrupt you, Commissioner Ali, but just thinking about what Commissioner Daniel was thinking, if it does come to it, that we do decide that we need a staff in the future, maybe that's something that could be built into a sustainability plan if this commission is deemed to not be continued. But the one thing I do want to just keep on our mind is that we are, as a commission, missing a key voice, and I would say that's someone that represents the Latino population in our community. And I just want us to always be thinking about that. And if there are any other voices that are being neglected to be heard. And I yield the floor.
Well,
sorry.
So with that, I want to just make sure, again, that we're respectful of everyone's time, but it seems that we do have one community member that wants to speak on this. So I would like to suggest, and of course you all have to agree as well, that we table the rest of our discussion on this current agenda item for this week and allow Joe Coulter to speak his piece and then move on to agenda item number 6. And if you're all in agreement with that, we can do that, or we can continue on. Okay. And with that, Joe, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. I'll be very brief. I think you've had some very productive discussions and this evening and are headed in the right direction. Uh, there are some other issues, though, that I would like to encourage you to examine. One is a legal issue about the police and fire departments and other city employees that may be involved in issues, and it's what's called qualified immunity. Uh, that's kind of a complicated thing, but that's why a lot of police never get subpoenaed or brought into court about their actions. Another area, first is qualified immunity. You need some legal advice on what that is and what kind of problem there is there. Another area that I think you need to keep your eye on is housing and discrimination. Our state legislature, unfortunately, has passed a law that doesn't require the owners of housing to respect the Section 8 housing vouchers. That's bad. That affects a lot of poor people and people of color and others. Another area that I would hope to see you do is become familiar with what is now an ongoing review of the police. The city manager and has had a consulting firm and some others doing this, and there's a number of things going on with regard to what the city is doing in terms of reviewing the police. There's also a lot of data out there about practices that this police force has had that are not good practices and that are quite discriminatory. And there's data on that. You should have that data. You should take a look at what's going on there. Finally, the Community Police Review Board has made some very substantial recommendations to the City Council about what their duties are. And as I expect you know, the CPRB, the Community Police Review Board, reviews cases where the police actions are in question and conducts substantial work in that, and that is being strengthened by the recommendations of the Community Police Review Board. So those four areas: what's qualified immunity, what's going on with housing, what's going on with revisions to the police department and the review of the police department, and what's going on with the Community Police Review Board. You need to get up to speed on those. And Stephanie is an excellent resource for getting you in touch with those. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. All right, and from there, we will move on to agenda item number 6, discussion of governance and organizational issues. Commissioners will discuss establishing rules, bylaws for conduct and governance of the commission, including duties of commissioners, frequency of meetings, future meeting schedules, voting, election of officers, creation of subcommittees or working groups, training, recruitment of facilitators, consultants or experts, creation of budget, and other issues relating to activities of the commission. Before we do a deep dive into this section, I would just like to say that from what I've gathered from comments earlier in the meeting, but also tonight. Also tonight and yesterday, seems that we definitely will need the extension. So I think that we should look to ask the city to extend the commission till at least October of 2022, because that would give us another 4 months on top of what we currently have. So if we go back 4 months now, that'd be just the end of December. So it'd basically be the original length that we were given. But I also do want to remind everyone that this doesn't mean that the commission would be forced to stop with us, because a policy recommendation can be made that either an ad hoc truth and reconciliation commission is brought back by the city after a period of, anywhere from 2 to 5 years, or that it becomes a permanent commission. So we have those things that we can do in terms of recourse. But from there, I'd like to just give Commissioner Vice Chair Ali the opportunity to introduce the bylaws.
Hi. So for the sake of time, I don't want to get too heavily into this because this is just a draft. And I do want to dig deeper into this at our first subcommittee meeting so that we can have more of a roundtable kind of conversation about this and see where people's heads are at, because this came from kind of Steph directing me with other bylaws from other commissions that the city has and things like that. So it is totally subject to change, and you guys, I'm open to any suggestions and expertise that you guys may have. And so I don't know if we want to read through this entire thing tonight right now, but there are a few things on here, like as far as, can you scroll down just a hair, Steph? So the absences thing, we kind of decided a long time ago, and I don't think that it needs to be like a huge long conversation on these things, but I do think that when we are in our subcommittee meetings, we should talk about if we want to have different rules for different subcommittees or bylaws for different subcommittees, or if we all just want to do just a basic this set of bylaws. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any input or has gone through this that they want to talk about, you can let me know, but it's open for discussion, and I want to have more concise conversations on it during our smaller subcommittee meetings. Just because I think those are going to be the meetings that we get a lot of like actual not real work, but a lot of work done in those meetings as well.
Thanks for putting this together, Vice Chair. I wanted to kind of know what you had in mind for discussing this. You'd mentioned that you want us to sort of look at this more as we dive into subcommittees, but in terms of like timeline for making a vote on this, did you have sort of a projected suggestion?
So I think that I think that this could probably be finished by is it Labor Day, the one that's coming up? I can never remember which one is. It's one of them. Memorial Day, sorry. So that's what I was thinking, that we could kind of have an idea of this, but I know that's only 2 public meetings and I don't know how many subcommittee meetings from now. So I think that we can shoot to have it kind of finished up, and because we do have to give it to the council to approve. So maybe whatever their first meeting is after Memorial Day, we could go for, if you guys would like to do that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. The only other question or thought that I had was I recall the city attorney mentioning something along the lines that like our subcommittees aren't sort of designated as like governmental bodies per se, so they don't necessarily need to have bylaws and things like that. Someone please correct me if I misheard that or if I'm wrong about that.
No, that's correct, because there's not a quorum of commissioners meeting. In terms of the next city council meeting, it would be June 1st from Memorial Day.
June
It'd be
1st.
Tuesday, June 1st, yes.
Okay, and then we would need, in order for that to be a part of their agenda, it would need to be submitted the Friday before, or?
Actually, it would probably need to be submitted sometime between the 25th and the 26th, because they post the council packets on the 27th. They post them on Thursdays.
Okay. May 25th and 26th. Okay.
So it does look like we would need to have a vote on this by our next meeting.
Yeah. Are you guys okay with that?
Either that, or if needed, there could just be one short special meeting, 15 minutes or so that week as well, if needed. If we can't get it done at the next meeting, just a little short special meeting to just approve it. Once again, this is something everyone has to agree on, so I think we likely just need a motion on this to come up with some kind of plan, or just agree to look at it more in our subcommittee meetings and then come back in the next meeting to make a final decision with motions.
I think that would probably be the better idea, because I think on the subcommittee thing, I said, try to have your first meeting scheduled by May 6th. So I think that would be appropriate.
I would propose, and without necessarily a motion at this point, but just maybe some way that we can move forward is just let's discuss these more in our subcommittees, and then after our subcommittees or as individual commissioners have any suggestions or things to add, maybe they send those to you, Vice Chair, so that you have sort of some collected database of or whatever, just thoughts of the commissioners that are suggested on changes or edits. Then we can review those suggested changes at the next meeting and then vote.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Just the only thing I would change is email Stephanie and then she'll email me. So yeah, that I'm okay with that. And then, so if we're all in agreement, does anyone have anything else that they would like to add about number 6?
So I believe we need a motion. Is that?
Do we need a motion, Stephanie?
Ooh,
I don't think you need a motion, because if the chair, vice chair, or a commission member, according to the draft bylaws right now, can set agenda items, then if they feel like that's something that needs to be on the agenda for May 13th, then it can be placed on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that if everyone is in agreement, we can have this discussion in subcommittee meetings and make that the focus of these next subcommittee meetings, and then come back in that mid-May meeting to, do something substantial actually on the bylaws and come to an agreement. Is there anyone that disagrees with that or would like to speak on it further?
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is discussion of commission subcommittees and working groups. And would just like to say, Steph, if you could scroll down a little bit.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
Uh,
I made this sheet all the way there. Yay. So this was from the last meeting. So if you're in purple, it meant that I was not sure if you wanted to be on that committee or if it would be asking too much. And then Kevo, your name has a question mark under budget because you were originally a part of the budget committee, but I didn't know. And then, yeah, so if there's anyone that, so like earlier I heard Chastity say that she thinks that there should be a sustainability subcommittee or something to just remember how to keep this sustainable, I believe. Is there anyone else who has any ideas for other committees or?
And Commissioner Ali, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a subcommittee, but just something that we come up with, so that we make sure we're reaching our trajectory.
Yeah, I agree.
I would just like to suggest when it comes to the budget subcommittee, from what I've gathered, there isn't really anyone else that wants to be a part of it. And so I think what we could do is, because 4 people in a meeting is not a quorum, I could attend some of these other subcommittee meetings that I'm not a part of and just kind of be a part of that discussion and ask what exactly they would like to see on the budget and kind of just be in the know on that. And then from there, when it comes to other logistical things like asking the city for release of funds and things of that nature, it can also come into those subcommittee meetings and make sure that things like that are formally agreed upon, put onto the next agenda, and then voted on so that we can get those official documents to the city as well. And would also just like to say that I do have that budget prepared and I am ready to send it out. I just did not send it out this last week because I wanted to ensure that Commissioner Daniel was a part of this conversation and the whole get to know you thing before just overwhelmed her with all of this information at once. And lastly, I just want to make it known publicly now that it I feel that the people on this commission should be paid for their work. Because for me, city council is. I don't know that the other commissions do have payments, but for me, if we're going to be looking at a problem as serious as systemic racism and inequality, that doesn't seem like work that should be done for free, especially if we're going to be paying so many different collaborators and facilitators. Um, and as well, I think it would really help with making sure that people are staying accountable, knowing that there is a payment tied to it. So it really is true work. And yeah, that's really all I have on that. But if anyone else has anything to add on subcommittees, the floor is yours.
I just wanted to clarify because I was watching the meeting, the last meeting, and I thought the housing committee, the commission had decided to do away with the housing subcommittee. Is that accurate or is inaccurate? I should.
I am thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's we decided to put together to the land acknowledgement, and at the end we also added something about enslavement on that piece of sustainability. If that's my memory of it, and I'm sure it's somewhere in the minutes in the how.
I remember we had agreed to table the housing subcommittee just because we do have so many organizations in the area already that are so focused on it. So if anything, we can bring them into actual public meetings or other subcommittee meetings to help inform us on the work that they're doing and allow them to present to the public as well. So that can be a part of the record and a part of the final recommendations. And as well, when it comes to the land and the labor acknowledgements, the land acknowledgement was more of a thing that was tasked to Commissioners Nobis and Rivera, just because they are, Commissioner Rivera just feels so strongly about it, but also that Commissioner Nobis is the most reputable voice on that actual aspect. And then when it comes to the labor acknowledgement, What I had said was that we do need to make sure that we do some research and bring in at least one or two experts at the minimum to advise us on that, because we want to be sure that any acknowledgement that we're making, especially if we're going to ask other commissions or the city council to possibly go over them, that we don't do anything that the community does not stand with or that we don't have a concrete agreement upon. And with that, I yield the floor.
Commissioner Rivera, I'll verify that yes, we decided not to have a housing subcommittee at our last meeting, and that's included in the minutes. In terms of budget, I really just don't have any expertise in formulating a budget, and so I would like my name removed from that. But I would be interested in joining the education and youth if no one else is vying for that last spot. I'm noticing that Commissioner Daniel hasn't had an opportunity to posit what subcommittees they'd like to be a part of.
Without having to go back to the minutes, why did we decide to not to have housing?
I think it was just because it was that I do remember this conversation now. It was because there's a lot of other entities that are working on affordable housing that we want to engage with rather than take this on all on our own. Uplift those projects that are already working on this, I think, and working with them because they've already, done a lot of the work towards this. And I think that's kind of where we went with that.
Yeah, 'cause I just want to make it clear that we will still have the opportunity to have those conversations in these meetings. It'll just be that we won't be tasking a subcommittee with the sole focus on that. We have things like the Johnson County Affordable Housing Commission, and then also just if there is a city commission, I believe that focuses on that as well, and just so many other nonprofits and entities in the area that have that as a sole focus. And I also just want to give Daphne the opportunity to see if there's anything you would like to choose as a subcommittee to be a part of.
Or if you have any suggestions.
So thank you. I have one suggestion about, and I don't, like a collections subcommittee. That sounds a little intimidating. Or cataloging committee, just a subcommittee that can discuss and research and look into what rules we can have in place to ensure the information we collect is archived and safe. I'm trying to look at the minutes from the last meeting to figure out what subcommittees there are, and I just until I can find that, I don't know if I can say which subcommittees I want to join at this point. I yield.
So currently everything other than housing, and I believe that Stephanie, being our city staff member, with archiving actual information that we send between ourselves in email format, that is something that we will actually be handling on our own when it comes to our emails, but also that we do have the opportunity to send things directly to her as well. Then when it comes to data as well, I mean, the budget subcommittee and the names of these subcommittees and what they do does not have to remain the same the entire way through. We can amend what they're actually doing. So when it comes to passing the budget, after that's passed, it could become more of a budget and collection subcommittee and can work in tandem on that. And would just because I will have a lot less to do on the budget, and just also want to say that I will not be looking to work on that whole thing myself. I will definitely be contacting other people in the area, and also will be speaking with the Divided Community Project and anyone else that's interested to actually look over that budget and help decide what exactly is needed, but also give the subcommittees the ability to say, we think we need more for this, or we think we need more for that. just to make it a more holistic process and give everyone the chance to speak. But Commissioner Daniel as well, if you would like to wait to pick something, then that's completely fine. Can give you the time that you need and make that decision sometime before the next meeting as well. But we would like you to at least be a part of a conversation in one of the subcommittee meetings so that you can speak on bylaws and things that you want on that. And with that, I yield the floor.
So,
I'm sorry.
Any
Oops.
point decide whether we'll have an employment or unemployment, however we would want to title it, committee, subcommittee, employment.
Like, who are we gonna hire on, or who's working on like employment in
Yeah,
the
just looking
discrimination and
into employment as
okay,
a social injustice concern.
okay.
We do have the Center for Worker Justice is something that we could leverage, but if the rest of the commission decides that's something that we solely want to focus on, that's something we can add, but that's
Okay.
something that people would have to motion and approve.
I did just want to interject here about the housing subcommittee. It looks like it's one of the examples given in the resolution that created the TRC. As historical context for why the city has a Human Rights Commission, in 1963, August of 1963, the university and the city came together to create the Human Rights Commission to specifically address housing inequities that were occurring here. And so if you are looking at discrimination here in Iowa City as it relates to housing, well, I should say if you're looking at discrimination, there's a very direct link to Black history and housing discrimination in Iowa City. The University of Iowa did admit Black students, but they had an informal policy that did not allow them to reside on campus. And that policy did not change until after World War II. And then even after that, they only allowed Black females to live in dorms. And if you look at your history of Black males that were going to the university, they generally were still having to find housing within the community because they could not live on campus. So I just want to throw that out there as historical context for why housing discrimination is kind of pivotal to the history of Iowa City and the creation of the Human Rights Commission. In terms of employment discrimination, that's an area that's also covered by the Human Rights Commission or the office. And so in terms of housing, employment, public accommodations, credit, or education, I mean, the office would be a resource to assisting the TRC, whether or not you decide to set up a subcommittee or not, but just realizing the historical significance of housing discrimination and people of color here in the community is going to be pivotal to some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Steph, for bringing that up, and especially those two, unemployment and housing. In my work in the community, again and again and again, my people of color, those are two areas where that they are disempowered. So even if I keep mentioning them right now as subcommittee, that's where I'm coming from, because even with that history that Stephanie has given us, we still find that whatever is set up isn't working in those two areas. So there are two huge pieces as we decide, do we work with already what is there to get to gather information? Oh, yeah, it's still very, very current, the disempowerment of people of color in, yeah, there are two pieces that are, and empowering them is removing the discrimination that is there and the racism.
I would just like to say something that we can do even outside of subcommittees is, like attend these meetings of other commissions or groups and then come back as well and either bring summaries to add to the agenda or make sure that we speak on them in the agenda. Because what we talk about in our meetings is not limited to just what subcommittees we create. We can have anything added to the agenda that, you know, we feel is necessary. So going forward, I would just like to say if there's anything that anyone on the commission would like on the agenda, just feel free to email Stephanie at any time to add that piece as well. And I am more than happy if the vice chair also agrees to, yeah, just put that on the agenda so we can make sure to center that conversation in a meeting and in future meetings as well.
Yeah, I think there was a part that I put in the bylaws that said if we're not going to put something on the agenda that you requested, we'll give you a reason why in writing. So, uh, yeah. So if everyone's okay with those subcommittee on that little document, I'll remove the housing subcommittee section, and then I can reach out to people individually to see what time and availability they have next week. Or if you guys already have my number and want to text me what availability you have next week so that we can schedule these subcommittee meetings and just start the work on that, that would be great.
Before we go there, I just wanted to ask a quick short question to Commissioner Traore, or maybe it will end up being with Steph. Yeah, so I know a lot of the organizations working in the various things, informations we're interested in, we are welcome to most of the meetings. And I'm asking, so are we also able to invite somebody in our meetings to come and help us with our information gathering or education or something of the sort? Okay.
I would encourage that. I'm going to be asking people I know to come to the meetings to talk about topics that I'm not an expert about. So I would love if you did that, and things like that are invaluable to this commission. So yeah, I think that is perfectly fine.
One thing on that I'd like to suggest as well is for anyone we are inviting, if there is something that they'd like to present during the actual meeting, to ask them to send that to Stephanie as well, so we can have it as an attachment to the agenda, because we want to make sure the public has the ability to see whatever that is and that it's also a part of the archived records.
Okay. In keeping with parliamentary procedure, point of information, is it possible to move to reinstate the housing subcommittee? Because I do think there's a lot of information there and a lot of stories there that hit at the heart of the work that we do. And so while there are other groups that are looking at the issue, we have a unique chance to get the stories from the people who are experiencing discrimination and displacement. So I yield.
You would just have to make a motion for that, and then someone just needs to second it, and then I can just ask Stephanie for roll call.
Okay, so I move that we reestablish the housing subcommittee.
I second that motion.
Second that motion.
All
Stephanie,
those
can
in,
we get-
Is there any discussion before I do roll call on that motion?
I think we just had a good discussion about it.
So Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
yes.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathiwa,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
and Commissioner Traore.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does
And
anyone have anything else? Sorry, Mohammed, I keep
oh, you're
interrupting
fine.
you.
I just wanted to say that when it comes to the subcommittees themselves, if there's anything that anyone doesn't want to be a part of, or because, I mean, we didn't vote to set in stone that you have to be on this subcommittee or that one. I don't want to pick that with motions or anything tonight. Don't want to bind anyone to that. So my suggestion just is that if there's any subcommittee your name is under that you would not like to be on, please email Stephanie within the next 48 hours to make that known so that we do have that list and that we can begin to actually make schedules for those subcommittee meetings prior to our next public meeting. Anyone have anything else to add on agenda item number 7?
Just on the subcommittees, because I do know where I have my names on, is because I do know I have a lot to offer, but if at any point I feel, as far as time commitment, it becomes overwhelming, or I will speak up.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes,
please,
please.
anyone, yeah. Your mental health is the most important. So yeah, please speak up if you're overwhelmed or anything like that. Kevo, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I just had a question. If it's the responsibility of the commissioners to organize amongst themselves to schedule the first meeting, or if someone like Steph is going to send out like a doodle poll for commissioners or something.
I was just going to text people individually. If you would like to do a doodle poll, I'm totally fine with that too, but it's up to you, you guys.
It doesn't matter. I just wanted to know who's sort of taking the direct next step after this meeting.
I am. I will be texting you all.
And before we go on, Amal, because you brought up self-care, I don't know, it's each to their own and how they look after themselves through this heavy, and I mean emotionally, psychologically, and yeah, or whether at some point we are going to come up with something formal for commissioners on how we take care of ourselves. Yeah, I needed to put that out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's something as well that can be considered in the budget. But is there anything else that anyone would like to add for agenda item number 7? Okay. And with that, agenda item number 8 is a land acknowledgement discussion and update on land acknowledgement. And I'll just hand that over to Commissioner Rivera.
Yeah, so this will be brief. We had a really good discussion last week, so I thank everyone for their comments on that. Directly after our meeting, based on the comments that were made, I made several edits to the land acknowledgement and sent those over to Sakawis for her review and for her to discuss the land acknowledgement draft further with other Indigenous leaders, including folks who are part of the Meskwaki Nation. And at this point, we're just kind of taking the time to make sure that we are getting the proper eyes on it before we bring that back to the commission for a final vote. And I know that the Human Rights Commission is still very much engaged in wanting to join with us in adopting a land acknowledgement. So as soon as we receive that sort of final draft for our votes, we'll add it to an agenda. We can discuss it, vote on it, and then forward that over to the Human Rights Commission, and then we can hopefully make a joint recommendation to council after that, if that's what the rest of the commissioners are interested in. But right now, I don't have an updated draft to present to you all. It's still in progress.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, if there's anyone else that would like to speak on agenda item number 8, you now have the opportunity. Okay. Agenda item number 9 is commission announcements. Just want to remind everyone commissioners are not to engage with each other directly on what is said during each commission announcement, and just go ahead and raise your hand if there's anything that you would like to say, and there's no obligation to say something. Okay. I would just like to say once again, thank you for coming to the meeting, and also for everyone in the public for bearing with us and just being a part of this. To me, it's not really a matter of how many people show up, but the fact that people are willing to, and the fact that we are doing the work. And also just want to say that, again, when it comes to getting to know each other a little more, I am looking to, within the next 30 days, to, with each of you, have some time to either do a volunteer event together of something that means a lot to you, or just having more time to talk on the phone or a Zoom meeting, or just to do something individually with each of you to make sure I can learn a little more about each commission member, and they can learn more about me, so we can build that trust going forward, and so that we can just have a little bit more of an open line of communication. And lastly, when it comes to subcommittee meetings, if anyone has, once again, has anything that they do not want to be a part of, just please feel free to say so, either privately or in the email chain. And also as well, the People's TRC will be having a meeting next week on Thursday, May 6th at Weatherby Park. If anyone would like to attend, I know that I will be. There's no obligation to, but that's also a situation where there are many people from the community that will likely be there and be telling their stories. So even though that's not an official city group, we can still go there and at least hear some things there and use that as possible just ideas of things to explore. And with the permission of the individuals sharing their stories there, look to possibly bring that into our work. But with that, I yield the floor.
I just wanted to take this moment to acknowledge the life of George Floyd and the recent case that was resolved. I just think it's really important to at least talk about that, because it is basically the reason why this commission was created. It sparked a lot of everything that happened last year. So I just wanted to say that.
I just want to say as well that I know that I don't really speak on those cases a lot and everything that really goes on in the country, but for me, it's just gotten to the point that I don't like talked about that cognitive behavioral therapy did over the last few years and everything, that I honestly just cannot watch the videos anymore. I don't. I just can't do it. Uh, the Ahmaud Arbery one was the one for me that just after that, I'd rather just read the stories here and there if possible. Maybe just pay attention sometimes, but yeah, I personally cannot keep reading about it. It last summer there was a period where it just kind of just destroyed me mentally for a little bit, but I have no problem with anyone wishing to speak about it. It's just more for me, it's just the videos I just can't do anymore. And
Yeah, go ahead if you still talking.
oh no, I'm good.
That stuff been happening since the 80s and the 90s, and I'm glad that we got smartphones and stuff like that to document those things, because things like that been happening for a long time, a very long time. And the smartphones and stuff like that, and the video is letting people see what's been happening. And with that, I yield the floor.
If there are no other commission announcements,
I
then
want to thank everybody for getting to know each of you a little more and your areas of expertise. I really appreciate that, just getting to know each one of you. I yield.
thank you. And before I forget, the very last thing I wanted to say is, once again, we'll send you guys copies of budget, and also just short, small little thing and just a summary of what we went over today. Just bullet point form, nothing too long, about a half page at the most. And if no one else does have anything, I will hand it off to Stephanie for staff announcements, but this is your chance
Just
otherwise.
when the Weather Bay event is and what it is, time, day, and what it is.
Mhm.
The Weather Bay, what is it?
Oh, sorry. So Thursday, May 6th, 7 p.m., I believe, or yeah, 6:30, 7 p.m. is the beginning of it. So Weatherby Park, right in the South District, right up Taylor Drive. It'll just be right there in the park. And just remember, have to have your masks there. That's their common rule for that. And also social distancing and everything. Anyone from the public is encouraged to speak. And yeah, that's all I have on that.
What is it by and by who? What is it and by who?
It's the IFR People's TRC. They were supposed to have a meeting tonight and they rescheduled it to next week.
Okay.
And with that, we do have agenda item number 10, staff announcements.
I don't think I have any announcements, so but thank you, Chair Chair. I sent so many emails to you, to everyone, that any announcements are probably in the emails that I'm forwarding. So, and if at any time people prefer me to like kind of just gather emails for say 2-3 days that people are sending to you and then just sending you out one email, let me know and we can discuss that. What I'm doing currently now, when people send correspondence, I just send that out to you right away. So
Thanks.
Thank you.
thank you.
I got one more question. I got just a silly question. If I got one of these, do I need to wear a mask or no?
What is it?
It's his vaccination
Oh, I can't.
sticker.
I was just wondering. No, it's a button actually. So
Oh, it's a button.
yeah, I was just wondering because I got both of my shots.
Still,
I was just wondering.
still wear your mask, Eric. Wear
Okay,
your mask.
I was just wondering.
I'll be sure to send a copy of their flyer in an email as well.
Yeah, I already got it, so I saw it already, so I'll be there.
If anyone has anything else, here's your chance. Otherwise, I will give someone the opportunity to make a motion to adjourn.
I just, when someone mentioned George Floyd, I believe it was Commissioner Dillard. I also wanted to mention and acknowledge and Adam Toledo, and that video was very, it made my blood run cold, but we mentioned children a lot during this meeting, and that's exactly why we need to engage our youth so this doesn't happen again, especially in Iowa City. And with that, I move to adjourn this meeting.
I second that motion.
Stephanie, can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. So Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathua,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
and Commissioner Traore.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.